Cool. All right, everyone. I think we're ready to get started. Welcome. As I mentioned, we're going live today with mental health therapist Kendra Snyder, and I'm super glad that she's able to join us today. And I want to share with you all too in this community. You're going to be seeing me go live more with people in our local area. One, because we know that things are shifting right now, and whether you're seeing us going live with, practitioners, therapists, or other local businesses, I really am inspired, and Michael and I are inspired to rally the troops and help our businesses and our practitioners thrive at this time. So if you see us going live, join us, share, and spread the word. And I'm just happy to welcome Kendra with us. So Kendra is a local mental health therapist in St. Paul, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and she has some really awesome specialties that she focuses on. So I'm going to pass it on to her to share a little bit more about what she specializes in as far as working with her clients, as well as maybe some of her personal story of where she got to, or how she got to where she is now.
Yeah. Thank you, Mel. I feel really honored to be here with you and just appreciate your heart so much. So thank you everybody for joining us. Like Mel said, I am Kendra Snyder, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in St. Paul, Minnesota. Right now, I'm seeing everybody through telehealth, so I'm meeting with everybody through the interwebs. But in my practice, I see individuals, couples, and families, and I primarily work a lot with people around trauma, and trauma kind of from a wide variety. But one of my specific specialties that I work with and support people around is people who have experienced religious trauma or trauma within faith or spiritual communities, or people that just have had a change in their own personal faith or spiritual practices and beliefs, and maybe identify with having some sort of adverse experience within a religious community. So that is a really significant part of my practice. Um, and I think something that goes along with that is I do a lot of work with people around reclaiming their intuition and really finding, who am I? When I pull everything apart, my job, these other titles, who am I at my core? And am I living out of that place authentically and congruently? So I do a lot of work with people around just reclaiming their intuition, reclaiming their truest self. Um, and supporting that voice and that uniqueness of their personhood. So but I work with kind of a whole variety of presenting concerns, depression, anxiety, relationship concerns, but a lot of work around religious trauma and identity support and individuation. So
Mm. That was one of the things when we first met, Kendra, that I was super attracted to your work, as far as I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that focus of the religious trauma and coming back to that sense of self, you can call it maybe a spiritual journey or not, but living from that place of trusting your intuition, I had really never heard of until I met you in the mental health realm. It's such a unique specialty, at least probably not to you anymore, but to me, someone who does more trauma in the body, and then finding someone who really is well versed in that space for mental health.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Religious trauma is something that is, I would say, not super well known. It's not something that has traditionally been grouped into our understanding of trauma, but it absolutely is. People that endure trauma within religious or spiritual contexts, they store that in their body, like we understand, veterans or other people that have endured really traumatic experiences. And I know you had asked about kind of a personal connection to that, and this absolutely is both a professional passion of mine, but also a personal passion. Um, I kind of got into this specific part of my practice working with people who have endured adverse religious experiences from my own story of going through a pretty traumatic, significant event, and then a series of smaller, just negative experiences within a faith community. And really realizing in the middle of that I had very little, and I would say even at times, no connection to myself. And so I started my own journey with my own therapist about like 7 or 8 years ago of I went to her and I said, I have no idea like what an intuition is. I have no idea like who I am and what I like. And, I've been on this long process of rediscovering that for myself. And it just kind of naturally started coming into my office and now is just something that I am extremely passionate about. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing your story because it exudes from you. And I think it's so powerful when you work with someone like a therapist like you, whether it's you're dealing with something or you're using it for prevention and just tuning in with that intuition or anyone. But it's so powerful when you have walked that talk yourself, and I just feel like you can hold the space differently. Not that you couldn't if you hadn't had your own experience with adverse religious experiences, but at the same time, because you have a deeper understanding in your own journey. I think that's really
Absolutely.
powerful as far as the work that you do. So I know we already have people commenting on the video, so they're excited to get into this. So share with us, Kendra, as far as everything going on with COVID-19. I know you are still seeing people virtually, which I'm so thankful for that you're doing that. Someone who really values mental and emotional and body mind well-being, and I'm grateful that you're still seeing people. But what is it that you are seeing that's maybe different now, or it's amplified in your practice, and how are you seeing that manifest in people's lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate that. I'm seeing a lot of different things. And it's changed and evolved over the last like 8 or so weeks. I've lost count how long we have been in this and how long I've been doing teletherapy. Um, but one of the big things that has really stood out to me is just the massive amount of collective trauma and collective grief that I'm hearing about and seeing in people that I'm working with, um, on in our country, across the globe. Just the amount of, when I say collective trauma, what I'm meaning by that is just the massive amount of uncertainty and unknown that we all are living with on a day-to-day basis. Our brains love and actually do really well when we are in situations of predictability and consistency, and as we all know, that has literally been stripped from us. And
Mhm.
so we're being asked to move in the world in such a time where things are incredibly unstable, uncertain, and that can be traumatic to our nervous system. And obviously, there's a ton of grief as well. And when I say that, I'm meaning grief of loss of loved ones, unfortunately, for a lot of people, for grief related to feeling of connection to people, around our sense of safety for our own health and well-being, and freedom, and just the plans that we maybe had for this last 4 or 5 months and for the future.
Yeah.
We're having to grieve and really close chapters in ways that we normally don't do, or that we never thought that we would have to. um, and part of some of the ways I'm seeing this manifest in people is, um, just kind of a propensity to move to some emotional extremes.
Mhm.
um, so seeing a lot of increased depression and anxiety. And also, I sometimes am seeing and talking with people about just how we sometimes also want to move into spaces of denial or avoidance.
Yeah.
And that really is connected to our brain's desire for categorizing what we're going through. So if it feels helpless and hopeless, we kind of lean and fall a little bit more into those moments of depression or anxiety or overwhelm. And then our brain kind of wants to give us a little break from that sometimes, so we can lean more into avoidance and kind of pretend like things aren't going on. And um, it's resulting in such a heightened state of arousal. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about sharing with people about right now is, I think this is a unique experience because there is a threat out there that we are aware of, and something that's causing a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability. But for a lot of people, we're not seeing it like in the flesh in front
Mhm.
of us.
Yeah.
And that is really disorienting. There's a lot of cues coming in that's like, this is normal life. This is, I should be okay. I should be comfortable. Yet there's this big kind of looming threat that to our body and our brain is like, I got to be prepared for this. There's something potentially dangerous. And just kind of creating space for ourselves to acknowledge that there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty and discomfort, and that can result in lots of increased emotions or a lot of grief.
Right. What I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned, Kendra, is speaking to the nervous system, which I love that you bring that into the work that you do, understanding how the nervous system responds to collective stress or collective trauma is it's so true in that even though you may not see what's happening in the world, you may not see it's not right in front of you, right? The saber-toothed tiger isn't right in front of you, but you better believe that your brain is processing that stress in a very similar way. So the heightened arousal, the big swings are all signs that the body is experiencing some sort of, sympathetic thing, trauma. And
Absolutely.
naming it as that does not mean that that's bad. I think it's actually important to acknowledge that, and there's such a beauty, I believe, when you can be in those emotions and not avoid them
Yes.
and not pretend like everything is okay. I know my default has been to um really like I like to look for what's the optimism here, what's the opportunity, but also give myself space to just like, wow, I really miss going to Orange Theory and that's okay. And I get that some people might say, oh, that's first world problems, but it's part of my routine and my structure.
Yeah.
Which going back to what you initially said, having that structure in your day, our nervous system really likes that. And when it's all jumbled and reorganized, there has to be an integration into what's happening now. And sometimes it's just kind of being with the uncertainty and learning how to be with that and not trying to avoid it, but name it, acknowledge it, process it in a healthy way. So,
Absolutely.
really important. So
Yeah.
tell me more, as far as and tell our listeners and viewers more when you're seeing these manifestations. What are some things that you have found that are working for your clients to practice at home that maybe you could share with our community as things again transition back to? I don't think there's going to be a new like a back to normal. I
No.
just think that that's we have to accept that things are going to look different. So in transition, we know that there can be things that get stirred up in the nervous system, in our body, mind, and our mental health. So what are some ways that our viewers and listeners can stay grounded in those moments of transition as things in Minnesota start to change and reopen?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple things that I want to share with you all. Just because, like you said, Mel, there is so much that's changing. We're being asked to exist in a constant state of change and unpredictability, literally on a day to day basis. And I agree with you. I don't think we're going to go back to the normal that we knew. And part of that I think is really positive because a lot of people are evaluating, what was my life like before and where was it misbalanced, or where
Mm,
was I extending myself in arenas that are not as life-giving to me? Where do I want to be putting my energy moving forward? So I think some of this non-return to normalcy is going to be positive, but there's a lot of grief in that too. And so just right off the bat, I really want to encourage people to find ways to honor their grief, whether that is a trip that you had planned that was coming up in the future, and you were anticipating it and really looking forward to it. Finding ways to just, like you said, sit with the sadness and the loss of that hope, and allow yourself to just be in it for a moment. And another way to kind of honor our grief is find ways to mark it. And what I mean by that is I'm specifically thinking about some people that I work with have lost loved ones, unfortunately, during this time, whether related to COVID or not related to COVID. And one of the things that as humans we need is ritual around transitions,
Mm.
like births and marriages and deaths, and finding ways that we can kind of mark that transition, mark that grief for ourselves is really going to be crucial during this time. So that could be something, like I said, related to a trip, or, just something that maybe feels a little bit more small, or it could be as big as, like, I lost this significant person in my life, and I can't honor them in the ways that I normally would. So how can I do that, given our current constraints, that really mark that and honor the loss.
Mm. I'm taking notes in our comments here on these so people can see. I love that point you talk about the rituals. I think what I have experienced in this is it's really allowed people to slow down and maybe have some sort of ritual experience to honor what was and honor what we're moving into, and
Yeah.
just slow down and be in a space of grief, but also celebration. And it makes me think of other cultures where they
Mhm.
celebrate the passing of ancestors for 3 days, 5 days, a week. They have their grieving, but then they also celebrate and they have a party for what's to come and the wisdom that they've passed on. So I really like that strategy, and I know I'm gonna take that into my life to just slow down and be okay with like the transition.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today, you had actually just kind of mentioned a little bit ago, Mel, that when we are experiencing such a heightened state of arousal and, big emotions that maybe feel more intense than we normally might feel them, or with more fluctuation, it is absolutely essential that we, as much as we can, create space for that. And um, I came up with these three little kind of, I can't even think of what the word is, but three ends to kind of go off of this. And what I mean by that is, I really think it's important to notice. So, first, noticing what is happening in our bodies on a day to day basis, noticing the sensations that you carry in your body. Is there a place where you feel constriction or tension? Is there a place that feels cold or warm or heavy? Is there a part that feels lighter, or like it's pretty peaceful? Our body is such a vibrant source of information about what we're actually experiencing. Like you had mentioned before, the saber-toothed tiger might not be right in our field of vision, but our body senses that it's around. And so our body's giving us cues as to our emotional well-being and our physical well-being. So noticing those sensations. And then the next N is naming what you are noticing. So, naming the sensations in your body. Oh, I feel a tightness in my chest. I feel kind of that, like, yucky uncertainty in my tummy. And try and give it a name. So, name the actual sensation and then name what it is. Normally when I feel this tightness in my chest, I feel worried, or I feel like stressed about something.
Mm.
Um, and then, in response to what you notice and what you name, what are the ways that you can nurture your body, nurture yourself in response to those two things? So maybe if I'm feeling tightness in my chest, and that might be related to anxiety or worry, a way to nurture myself would be going out and taking a walk and noticing all the stable things in my life, the trees that are budding, or the sounds of cars driving by, or birds chirping, or just spending time connecting to a loved one who can provide some encouragement. So, taking time, I would say on a regular basis, one time a day or multiple times a day, to notice what's happening in our body, to name that sensation, name the emotion connected to that, and what are the ways that I can nurture myself in response to that.
Mm. It's so powerful, Kendra, and it's so simple, but
Yeah.
it's so powerful. And it reminds me of what I teach in the office. We call it AAA with some of the body breath exercises, but I think the distinction that's super valuable in all of this is like loving the experience, and not even loving, but not judging yourself.
Yeah.
Um, loving your response in your body or learning to tune into it and
Yeah.
not judge it or suppress it, but actually connect with it and partner with it,
Yeah.
which is so valuable because, as you mentioned, that our bodies have wisdom. And if we start to tune in and listen, you can have a conversation with it, and our bodies tune in way before our
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex most of the time. But that's,
Absolutely.
some of that amygdala monkey mind can get in the way. So if we can just start to pay attention
Yeah.
and slow down a little bit, it's so valuable for all of you who are watching, or if you watch this later today or this weekend. I know it's super simple, but the more that you can practice it, it becomes really powerful in your life.
Mhm.
Don't just take it from me, but from Kendra, mental health therapist too. And I love that. I always love that you bring in the body. Mental
Yeah.
health is not just up here, it's the mind is in the body, right? So I love
Absolutely.
that you bridge that gap in the work you do and help people
Mhm.
discover a new way of being with their body and mind. So,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interconnected. And like you said, we are experiencing the world, whether something challenging or exciting, through our sensations, through our five senses,
mhm,
and through our body. And something you just said, Mel, brought to mind something I think is really worth touching on today. And you had said, kind of learning to be accepting and non-judgmental of our experiences is absolutely key during this time, because I'm hearing a lot of people have a lot of guilt and shame around that experience of, I'm having this physical sensation or having this emotional sensation, and everything around me is relatively okay.
mhm,
And just acknowledging, through gentle loving kindness to ourselves, the challenge, and maybe a truth that feels hopeful. So practicing gentle loving kindness towards ourselves internally, something like, I this is really challenging. The state of the world is challenging right now, and I have support. I have support through this person and this person. Or I really feel the uncertainty today. And this is the thing that I feel certain of today. I feel
mhm,
certain that I can nourish my body through eating this salad, or I am certain that I know how to support myself by taking a run later. So,
mhm,
really acknowledging from a compassionate place the reality, and then reminding ourselves of what is also true,
mhm.
that feels supportive and empowering to ourselves.
Yeah. It's almost like what is what is the reality that we're noticing, one reality, and also becoming aware of exactly what else is there for us to
Yeah.
become aware of, and being in a space of the dualities and the possibilities that really do exist. And knowing that our awareness and our focus, we get to be at choice with that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does start with saying, this is what I see to be true. And where else am I seeing like the exact opposite?
Mhm.
And not opposite
Mhm.
and good or bad, but just something different
Yeah.
that maybe allows us to move more into that nurturing state. I
Yeah.
think that's powerful. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing those strategies. I know I'm gonna take that to heart and practice that even more than I'm doing now, because I think it's so valuable. I just went for a
Yeah.
run this morning, which felt really good. So you talk
Awesome.
for a run. I know that's what supports me getting out.
Yeah. Can I share one more thing, just because
Yeah.
I know it's so in line with both you and I?
Yes,
I know
please.
we've had lots of conversations about this, and one of the things I'm really encouraging people to do is caring for themselves holistically. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, setting, maybe writing on a piece of paper, um, these four categories. So my physical self, my emotional self, my relational self, and my spiritual self. And try and intentionally do something one time a week to address one of those parts of you. And when I say spiritual, that could be someone's connection to a faith community. But what I also see it as is just a way that we're turning in. We're turning in towards ourselves. So that could be through a guided meditation. It could be through a very mindful walk out in nature, or engaging in some sort of creative expression about yourself. But really trying to tap in one time a week to each of these parts of our whole self.
Mm.
So that's my like parting last word with you.
I support that 100%. And something it makes me think of is this, when we go inward, that is a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Not necessarily from a religious standpoint, but that is, inspire in spirit is to take within.
Mm,
And if we break down the word, so if
yeah.
that helps you reorganize your brain a little bit around the word spiritual journey, which I know some people like that. Some people maybe it brings up things to work through, but it is an inner one.
Mm.
So I'm going to post those 4 things she mentioned too when we wrap up. So Kendra, I know you're seeing people right now, which I'm very grateful for. How can people and our viewers reach out to you if they want to learn more about what it is you do and potentially work with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like Mel said, I am working with people, supporting them with their mental health, and I'm seeing everybody exclusively through telehealth, which is like a platform very similar to what we're doing right now. Hopefully soon I will get the okay to start seeing people in person, but obviously I'm taking that in stride with what is, best practice. But absolutely able to support people through telehealth right now. And the best way to reach me and kind of hear a little bit more about some of the specific things that I do and offer is just through my website, which is KendraSnyderTherapy.com. I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, but I am not as active on those. So the bulk of my information is through my website. And if you just Google Kendra Snyder Therapy, it'll come up towards the top. So yeah.
Towards the top. I also put it in this link too in this video. So you're
Yeah.
right there. Cool.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, but oh, if you all can feel her presence and groundedness holding the space here, it's amazing in person too. So I can't wait until people can start to see you in person because you really do create such a safe place for people to fully express everything that's going on. I feel like even though you're my friend and colleague, I feel like sometimes like I'm in a session with you. It feels so good. So it just feels so good, and I appreciate
Oh,
your energy. So
that means so much to me. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. And I say this to everyone I work with. It really is a gift and an honor to sit in someone's story. And so I would be honored to support anyone that feels like this would be a good resource. So yeah.
and people in our community know, I mean, we have over 300 plus members in this community now, and people know or are learning that I don't just bring on anyone. You guys, I want to make sure that they're rock stars like Kendra, and they have the strategies and tools and the beingness to support all that is being human. So thank you, Kendra, for your time and your resources. And thank you all for tuning in live or later down the road. As she mentioned, you can visit her website and take advantage of those strategies she shared for yourself. You have nothing to lose but just, being with yourself. So any last words, Kendra, that you want to share before we sign off?
I think I would just say be really gentle, compassionate, and loving to yourself. We all need that, and it starts with us. So thank you all. I really appreciate being with you today.
Got it. Thanks, Kendra. Bye, everyone. See ya.